Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of Down the Donut Hole podcast. And not quite on the road, but sort of. We've got sort of a focal point to work from which we can sort of spoke out a bit and explore some stuff in the south of France.
Yeah, it's very exciting. It always feels good after the airports and the Ubers and the taxi cabs. All of that is kind of behind you, and it takes a day or two to kind of collect yourself to be able to, just have your equilibrium restored a little bit. So how are you doing on your jet lag?
I'm getting there. I think it's maybe when you age up a little bit, it takes more time. And I in previous such trips, similar ones, it has taken up to a week, actually. You feel pretty good for the first day or two, but I think you said it correctly a few days ago that, it's just leftover adrenaline or something from the travel. And then all of a sudden it hits you. Yeah. And I think one of the mistakes that I've been making is trying to do the math and figure out what time it is back in Eastern USA. And I think that subconsciously it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bed at 5 p.m. And, that doesn't help, I don't think. I think it's just better to sort of forget doing the math on the time zone differences and just go with the light and dark cycle.
Yeah, and whether you're hungry or not. I never have a problem foregoing the math on stuff. If it seems to be 5 o'clock, it's 5 o'clock to me. And so I think this time, mentally, I think I'm just kind of going with the flow, eating when I'm hungry, and all of that. And it is adjusting to the way the light is so that I'm ready to eat my supper at evening and I'm ready to go to bed, a few hours after it's fully dark. So that's all good for me. However, I find that I don't have the stamina that I normally feel like I do, that I have to pace myself better. Really and truly, that's not a bad lesson, just to kind of learn how to say, okay, I need to sit down, have a cool drink, rest a little bit, and then have another burst of energy. And I think that's a better way of doing things going forward, whether I'm on the road or whether I'm home. So, good resolution.
Yeah, like a philosophy almost.
Yeah, that's another good thing about travel is it gives you a chance to kind of look at your life objectively and make a few alterations and decisions that are going to work for you in the short term while you're moving. And maybe you'll find that they worked so well for you under those circumstances that you can adopt them as a new habit at home, which is nothing but good as far as I'm concerned. Managing how your body is, those are important things as people age up.
Becoming self-aware, so to speak.
Yeah, I would say that. I love it here. I love this area. We're in a mountainous region right now, and you might even hear it as we're speaking. There's quite a stiff breeze blowing, enough to blow over lawn chairs and that sort of thing. So I like that. I much prefer that to really hot, steamy, still weather. I don't do well in that, so this is good for me. However, today isn't really very sunny, and so I was going to do a batch of hand wash, which is how we handle things when we're on the road, because, again, a lot of what we do is camping.
Yeah, out in the hinterland, so to speak.
Yeah, so we have a clothesline that we put up and wash out some stuff, hang it up, and usually when the day is fair and it's warm enough, that little breeze plus the heat, stuff dries in no time at all, which is excellent.
Yeah, and it tends to be a more arid climate generally. There's cacti around, for instance.
Oh, you have to watch out for those, don't you, Dave?
Oh, my. Yeah. That was almost like a cartoon, wasn't it?
It really was. We one time had a car here, a long time ago. We don't do the car rental thing anymore. But we had a car here, and we had our computers, the big old style computers, not the little tablets that we've gotten so fond of in recent times. But we hammered a computer. My son was with us, and we just worked, hard on that computer. We were playing around and writing things and stuff. And so we asked Dave if he would please use the car battery to jump the, to charge up the computer battery. And he was very nice about it, said he sure would. And the driveway here has overgrowth on both sides. It's narrow. It's not a good driveway. And we discourage anybody who comes to visit us here from coming down that driveway in their vehicle. We say park up at the top and walk down. It's much, much better. But at that point, it wasn't as bad even as it is now. And so we parked about halfway down this slopey driveway. And Dave opened up the hood and began hooking up the chargers and all of that, the battery terminals. And then what happened, Dave?
Actually, to clarify, I had been charging it from the car battery, as you say, at the top of the driveway. And of course, the inevitable happened because the computers back then, like you indicated, are not very efficient on the power consumption.
Yeah, right.
Not like they are now. And of course, it drained the battery. I went to start it up. No go. But because it was a standard shift, and there was a pretty good hill there, I thought,
I forgot that.
I could jump it by letting it go downhill, putting it in gear and all that stuff, and then that turns the motor, and then the key is on. So it works a lot of the time.
But it didn't that time.
No, you get one chance too.
Yeah.
You only get one chance.
I wouldn't even try it, so I admire you for thinking of that and then actually doing it.
Yeah, I mean it did. It almost worked actually. But anyway, so that was my one chance done, and then I got out and opened the hood and seeing what I could do about jumping the battery. And as fate would have it, the car stopped right exactly where a bunch of cacti are growing. Maybe you can see where we're headed with it.
Oh, that was awful.
Looking in the rear view mirror, if you know what I mean. Somehow, I think a pebble or something shifted where I was standing on. Sat right on the cactus. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, now we're laughing about it, but we weren't laughing at the time.
Oh my God.
And the rest of us didn't dare make fun of them because you could tell that this was a sore spot on a lot of levels.
Oh, there was more than one sore spot there, I can tell you.
Oh, the joys.
You might have had the happy task of trying to remove some of those spines.
Yep.
No,
I was a
funny.
wonderful nurse. Hey, how did you finally get the car started?
Oh, I thought you said, how did your butt finally recover from that?
Well, I recall you didn't do a bunch of sitting for the next several hours, maybe even days.
Well, luckily it was just one bun, so I could sort of shift on to the other one. I don't know what we're going to call this episode yet.
Let's try to steer the reference away from your cacti problems.
Yeah, away from the derriere.
Hey, that's French. Maybe we could do something with that. We'll think about that.
Bien sûr.
Anyway, how did you get the car started? Do you remember?
I don't know.
I don't
remember.
We didn't. I don't think we had anybody jump us.
No, it must have been another battery because some batteries in the cottage. So I probably did one to the other, and just enough to get it started, and then you go run the engine for a while.
Yeah. Now, in this camping place where we are, we really rely on the solar charging, and it's interesting to me that we do very, very well keeping up with our phone charging and the tablets, and we have some solar powered lights that we use in the evening. We don't overuse them. You don't put those on early. And one of the things that we've learned to be conscious of by having these experiences, you do not hammer your battery. Because if you do, and tomorrow turns out to be like the weather we're experiencing today, you can find yourself in a world of hurt. So you make sure that you don't completely hammer it, that you try to keep up with charging. And we have some of those little, they're little flat batteries, portable batteries, that we charge those too when the weather is good. So Dave runs like a charging farm out there. One after the other, all the devices get charged, with priority ones being the ones that we rely on for the internet and that sort of thing. We have quite good internet here now, but that wasn't always the case.
No, the region in general was kind of pretty much didn't exist, actually, years and years ago, but now it's much better, of course.
Yeah. And with the mountains, too, even phone service here was iffy in past times. I think they've put up more cell towers over the years. And
there's a repeater tower here up behind us on the ridge behind us. I think they put in a repeater tower. So I think that's mainly the reason for the difference.
Yeah.
But yeah, I actually do love the idea of living very conservatively conscious about energy and things like that. And the fact that you do have to be aware of the weather, like you just mentioned. If you see that there's some period of time where it's cloudy, then you have to make sure that your backup batteries have all been charged. And it's always unfortunately, it's a long process to find the proper sort of solar panels too. Because there's a lot of that stuff out there on the market, especially portable ones, that claim a lot but don't deliver, and sometimes it takes trying several of them till you find the right one that will work even when it's not full sun.
And you should do that at home, not when you're on the road. Don't buy one like 3 days before you set off on your trip. You order those, you test them out at home under, the best conditions that you can find, and make your decisions about whether that's going to be useful or not, and really work them. Give them a workout. Charge up everything that you think you're going to be taking with you. See how long it takes. You have to understand that.
Yeah, you have to work with it for sure. And we do it even when we're home at our home, even though there's electricity there, because it's good practice. And also, you're doing at least a tiny little bit to help conserve energy. Help the grid a little bit, and it is. A lot of people say, "Well, that's pretty much nothing." But again, if everybody does that, or a lot of people do it, it does make a difference.
Also, it helps you out in the event of an emergency. If you have a way that you can take care of your own devices, if you're not completely and utterly dependent on how it goes with the grid, then you're better off. You have a way of communicating. And I can't overstate how important I think that is, especially in these times. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of weather issues. We keep hearing about attacks. We've certainly talked about that enough on this podcast over the span of our delivery. And I would say, think about it. We have the little notebook style ones, solar panels. They look like the cover of a book, like a notebook, like a tablet of paper is what they look like. They're just a little bigger than the average tablet.
They're like made on a substrate of some sort, and on top of them are a series of little bubbles, I call them. And those are like they act like little magnifying glasses. So this particular form of portable solar panel is very efficient, like I said, and they will charge something even when it's cloudy. Slower, of course. Full sun is going to be the quickest, but we've tried a lot of them through the years, and the technology has improved, and we've settled on this particular style. So it's working out really well, actually.
It is, and we've learned over the years, too, do not set your phone like on top of the solar panel or even on top of the table or whatever you're using, that it's better that you pop it underneath or keep it on the ground. Because if you're in full sun, those devices get really hot, and that's certainly not good for your phone or your tablet or whatever else you're charging out there. So try to keep those shaded as much as you possibly can while you're in the process of charging.
Yeah, and plus it's much better practice to charge your power bank than it is the device itself for that reason. Because, if you have something to go haywire, better for it to be your battery bank than your phone, for instance.
Right. It's funny because the more you do this kind of thing and this kind of travel, the closer you are to all the mechanisms that you need in your life. You're not relying on being able to run out to a restaurant, let's say. So you kind of tend to plan your meals. And if you cook a big meal, you kind of want to make sure that you have a little extra if you have a good way to keep it cool and under proper temperature. So that saves you time tomorrow. Even if the second night, what you cooked, like as the main for your meal tonight, if that just becomes a little side on the second night, A, you're using it up and not wasting it, and B, it's a lot easier to fill in. You're not spending as much money on the road because things can add up. And so, these are just some of the things that we've learned over the years that has allowed us to continue traveling. A lot of people say, I won't be able to go anywhere this year because of prices the way they are, because I don't have enough money. But if you live this way all year, you're conservative about how you allot your money for your groceries, your entertainment, all the other things. And so every month you put a little something away toward your trip or potentially toward a trip. You might not make it. There's factors that come to bear when you are making those plans. But if you work toward that, sometimes it isn't an extra whole year before you can go traveling again. Sometimes it's just a 2 or 3 month delay before you can travel again. But if you're working toward it, it's just a good thing. Plus, then you have a little cushion in case something really out of the ordinary happens and, really puts a hurt on your budget. So it's good practice all the way around. And so we always say, try to live well beneath your means, because it will allow you to do a lot of fun things that seem to be above your means, but aren't because of that sensibility.
Mm-hmm. So, and through the years, we've become aware of the idea of watching the money markets, the value of one currency versus another. And that's particularly important when you have unstable money markets like we sort of have now.
We're very surprised.
So the other thing...
Dollar to euro conversion this time is one of the worst we've seen. So I know there's a lot of factors that go into that, but wow.
Yeah, we usually keep an eye on things like that, and this time we got blindsided. When you're in the process of being on the move and you need to get a little cash, for instance, at the airport or whatever, at the ATM, you need it, but it was, oh my gosh, it hurt bad.
Yeah, it was almost $100 difference. And not for a great amount of money either. We're talking not a very large amount of money, but enough to, be able to pay cash for something, so you're not hitting your card again and again, because there's fees with that.
So I for a while I was doing this Forex thing. I got talked into it by our son,
who is good at it.
He was pretty good at it, but I suck, so I had to give it up. But anyway, sort of. You have to do that a little bit when you have volatile money markets, and you think, well, I'm going to watch the money market today, and then you look, how the trend is, and then you can actually choose when to buy things that you need. I mean, if you need it right on that day. But if it's sort of a stock up thing, and you can wait and watch the market until it becomes more favorable for you at that particular time, and then you buy. So, it's surprising how much money you can save that way.
Yeah. And watching the weather, too. We always decide after our flight to stay in the city for a few days, kind of catch up a little bit, when you go camping, there's a lot of work involved with that. And to give yourself the best chance of being able to find that enjoyable, then you need a little bit of rest. And I don't care how old you are. I just think it's a better idea. Plus, it's fun to experience the city before you head up into the countryside. And what a countryside. Mm-hmm. One of the things I love the most about this area of France is there are so many wild herbs growing that smell wonderful. There's rosemary, there's thyme, just growing wild everywhere. So if your pant leg brushes against some rosemary as you're taking a hike or something, or your foot crushes a low-growing thyme bush, the smells are so delightful. It makes you hungry. Mm-hmm. I'm always hungry here, which is a great thing because the food is great.
Yeah, you can take sort of a delicious walk instead of an allergic one. And for me, that's, oh my gosh, it's such a relief to have something like, like culinary herbs instead of things that you're allergic to all the time.
There's also wild lavender that grows in certain places. And it's just delightful to take a little sprig of that and kind of crush it between your fingers and smell it. I usually stick a little sprig in my hatband or in my top buttonhole so that I can smell it as I'm walking along because it's so clean and sharp.
Hippie.
Maybe. Although I don't remember being so pleased by that sort of thing when I was younger. I was too busy taking in everything. I did love plants, that's for certain. I used to have a nice little garden in my father's. They had like a little sun porch, and I had that all filled up with plants, mostly herbs, actually, that I enjoyed growing. And, but just certainly lavender wasn't something that grew wild where I lived. You might be able to swipe a sprig from somebody's garden or along a sidewalk.
Have you had some time? Maybe not. It's only a couple of days now that we've been in this particular location to scope out the area for your cooking.
Yes, I was out earlier this morning, actually. Last year when I was here, I found a lot of wild mustard, and I made a wild mustard pesto, which was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So I went out today, actually, looking for the wild mustard, and I only found one plant, and it won't be really enough to do much with, but I brought in what I found. I'll wash it up, crush it, cut it up, crush it up, and add it to a little bit of olive oil to flavor the olive oil at least. And I'll warm the olive oil when I do that because it'll release those flavors and scents a lot quicker if you do that. I won't boil the olive oil, just warm it well. And then one of the things I do is if after you do that, you can leave it in a sunny window for a little bit and get it even warmer, or maybe out on a table that's in the sun. Cork it up properly and allow it to steep longer. I do that with hot peppers. I make really nice pepper oil. I do it with garlic. Same process. Warm the oil, bottle it, usually a clear bottle. Keep it warm in the sun for an afternoon, and then every day you have that oil, it gets better and better and better because the flavors intensify. So normally when I do that, I just do single note. Like if it's pepper oil, it's just going to be peppers that I put in there. I don't put pepper and garlic in there, just peppers. No salt, no other seasonings, just peppers. And then when I cook, I'll add other seasonings to that, but I understand exactly, what flavors I'm going for. So it's a lot more versatile if it's single note, like they talk about, wines or something like that, than if it's more complex and more of a blend. So that's lovely. And it is spectacular with focaccia dipped in. I add a little black pepper to the oil that I pour in a little dish. Bake some fresh focaccia.
Okay. It's lunchtime. It's,
You'll be able to hear our stomachs growling.
We're going to have to cut this short, I think.
And I do love the focaccia because it's like 20 minutes at 400 to bake it, and it only takes about an hour if you have good yeast to rise it. And here's a tip for everybody at home. If you have a nice covered bowl, grease that bowl, mix up your focaccia dough, set it in your car. This time of year in the summertime, set it in your car for a little while, just not even an hour, and it will rise wonderfully. And then you can bring it in and spread it on your pan over top of I use a little coarse grain cornmeal underneath, so the focaccia loaf is easier to lift. And then I just slice it up. What I don't use in one meal, I'll stick in the freezer.
In Florida, actually, you might be able to bake it in your car.
Oh, probably, almost. Of course, I don't think it reaches 400 degrees in there, but it is pretty hot. So you could easily rewarm it in just a few minutes by setting it in maybe a plastic bag a little bit. But you have to remember not to do that too long, because the condensation in the plastic bag can make the bread a little soggy. So, keep that in mind. Don't be afraid to try it, but only for a short while. And then, don't leave it there. And don't store that focaccia or bread. If there's any left over, don't store it in that same bag. If you, heated it up in a plastic bag in the sun, because of the condensation, it'll go bad a lot quicker. It'll dampen that bread, and you'll wind up with moldy bread sooner than you would have if you put it in a different bag and then stored it. I store all of that in the fridge or the freezer. Here in France, that's something we learned about baguettes. The ideal, of course, is to go right downtown and buy yourself a loaf or two in the morning for that day's usage. Other than that, if they've run out, maybe you slept in and were a little late getting down to the shop, then you might look in a fridge that they have, because they keep those baguettes in the fridge or in a freezer.
La baguette congelée.
Translate, please.
That's frozen. So
Say it again.
if you need a baguette and they're out, which they do, they sell out the daily baguette sells out pretty quickly. Then you could ask, "Avez-vous de baguette congelée?" Do you have any ones frozen somewhere?
Okay.
So that's something that, it works great. I mean,
it really does. I don't slice them when I freeze them. I only cut them in half, so they fit better in one of those plastic bags in my freezer. But here, they don't do that. They'll oftentimes put them in the freezer in like a paper bag. The ones that are bread loaf shaped, kind of long, narrow paper bags. But I don't always have those. After I'm here a little while, I do have them, and I save them. I don't throw them away. I find here I don't throw things away nearly as quickly as I do back home, because it's just a different thing. It's not as easy to get plastic anything. And you use your own grocery bags. I know in some states, in New York State certainly, the laws have been passed that you don't get plastic grocery bags. I think you can buy them. I think you can pay extra for them. But everyone is encouraged to use reusable bags, that's a wonderful thing. I mean, getting used to the idea of doing that is kind of a pain. But once you get used to it, I always was forgetting my bags, my own grocery bags. And so I put a hook on my door. So there they are. When I go out the door, I'm much more apt to see them than if I tuck them in the cupboard under the sink or someplace like that. So if they're in view, you'll remember them. Or if you really want to make sure that you have them when you go to the grocery store, put them in the trunk of your car or in the back seat of your car. Leave them there. After you take your groceries out, take just 2 minutes, walk out to your car, put them in the car, come back in the house. And consider that part of the grocery putting away ritual. And then you'll make sure you have them, because it seems silly. And sometimes you can notice that you have been forgetting those. If you find that you have 10 or 12 of those, heavy-duty totes grocery totes, then you know, hey, I have to do a better job. I don't need to keep buying these. Although they are good for storage. Hats, mittens by the door, use one of those ones that you shouldn't have bought, but you forgot. Use it to collect those. Baby shoes hung on the inside of the baby's closet. That it is great for that. Toy blocks, the little ones that the kids like to play with, those are nice. And you can hold that bag and help the kids pick up. And, it's kind of fun. You hold it like trick or treat and let the kids toss the blocks into the bag. And they kind of like doing that. There's a lot less resistance to having the kids help pick up. If you
do you have any kind of a chant for the putting away ceremony or ritual, I guess is what you said?
No, but I probably should try to devise one. That would be extra wonderful, wouldn't it? No, these are definitely, we're talking like senior citizens. I hear us sometimes. And I remember my grandmas, they both passed away when I was quite young. But I remember the time I did spend with them. And I liked listening to the things that they had experienced and had learned.
What happened to that? It doesn't seem like that's a thing anymore.
I don't know. My grandkids, I enjoy visiting with them, and they seem happy enough to hear, especially the old stories. That's one of the things, too. We do this podcast every day, and there's nothing to stop anybody, maybe not from doing a podcast that you have to have finished on a particular time frame. But anybody can get a little microphone and sit down and talk for 20 minutes, tell an old story from your youth, or relay a story told to you by your mother or father or grandparents, and tell those stories. Get them on that, get them on a little thumb drive.
Yeah, there was a series, I think, they used that as a filler on PBS when a project where they would go around and some of the older folks and, ask them questions and let them tell stories from their past. It's quite interesting. It really is.
Oh, I think a collection of thumb drives that you've been working on, as well as a well-organized photo album. I'm so regretful that I didn't keep up good photo albums over the... Well, in my defense, this is what my excuse is, and it's not good enough by any measure. We had a bunch of photo albums, but if you know how fat those are, a couple of times when we were making moves, we just took all the pages out of there or took the photographs out of the album with the intent that when we got where we were going, we would reinstall them in a new album in the new place so that we didn't have to accommodate that extra volume in the shipping process. And then we get where we're going. You have a billion things to do to set up a new household. And we still have not gotten around to putting those back in albums in a sensible way. So that's one of the things I would love to do for my kids. Maybe some year for Christmas, just go through all of those pictures, organize them sensibly, write on the back of them. We have a lot of pictures from our parents, and the ones that we appreciate the most are the ones with writing on the back. Because, it's easy to forget. It's easy if you're looking at them as an adult now in the time frame of the pictures from when you were a kid. It is unlikely that you will understand completely when that was. Sometimes you can tell, okay, it's Christmas, it's the year I got the doll, this particular doll I wanted, or the guitar that I asked for.
30 of them?
Not 30 of them. Who gets their kids 30? Oh, my goodness.
Never mind. I'm sorry I said that.
Yes, you
Carry
did. You
on.
touched it up. Oh,
no, I don't want to trigger you.
We're trying to minimize our reviews of the nervous news. I've seen some things lately that I have not thought were very good.
It's so nice not to be barraged by that, though, from the media, and just go on as normal.
Yeah, it is. It is good.
It's a nice break.
Well, I think part of the problems that are for us, one of the reasons we don't see it is because, of course, the news is all in French. We're here in a place without electricity.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
they
we
don't
plugged
dwell
into
on
that.
it. You know, they have the news reports and all that, but they're just short. You know, there's 5 minutes tops, and then they're on to lifestyle talk and arts and music and stuff like that, instead of constantly being barraged by nervous news.
I have noticed, and it's easier to see it when you're away from it, that so much of what I see from the States is fear-inspiring. It seems deliberately so. So if you're listening to this podcast and you happen to be in the States, understand that you are wise to be cautious, you are wise to be aware, but do not give in to unnecessary fear, because people who are in a state of fear are much more likely to accede to things that they wouldn't otherwise, or to believe a whole scenario of frightful things when there only may
More
be a
apt.
grain or two of truth.
Or more apt to swallow the Kool-Aid, as it were.
Yeah. And this is not at all limited to this administration. It's a pattern that has been happening since consolidation among the media in the U.S. was allowed. And that took place over a period of years. And we are now living with the result of having limited the number of voices that are presenting news to us in a big volume. You know, you can get news, but if they're small publications that are hard to get, you know, they don't really reach the general public. The general public is consuming the mass media news, and that has been reduced to just a few players. I say that again and again because it's difficult to maintain balance in your viewpoint or your perception of events when you're getting your news from one source or maybe two. Your job, your obligation to yourself primarily is to seek many different viewpoints and add it up for yourself based on what the evidence is. Just add it up for yourself because you are wise.
Yeah, do your own research.
They can't fool you if you're getting a lot of information from a lot of different sources, because everybody has an axe to grind. In the old saying, hey, follow the money, it holds. Follow the money. Who stands to gain if you respond in a certain way? And once you establish where the money's going to land or where it looks like it's going to land, you'll know how you should proceed. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. That is a good practice for every single person, no matter what your political ideology is. So look, be open. Be open. And remember something. Nobody should have the sense that your vote is a lock, that they can count on your vote no matter what they do, no matter what they say, no matter what the circumstances around them are. You don't have to promise anybody your vote, ever. You know, you vote the way you think is wise based on everything that you've sought out and learned, and then cast your vote. But don't promise it. Make them work for it. Why not? It only benefits you. It's time that you use that vote as currency. And I think there's no shame in that. It makes you more valuable to whatever party, to both parties, frankly, whether you've started out a Republican or a Democrat. If your vote is going to go to the most capable, most reasonable candidate, then everybody's got to work hard then, don't they? To be reasonable and to be cautious and to seem like you're going to deliver for everybody. So if we're promising our votes and wearing the t-shirts and the hats and all stuff like that, so that the sense is that anything you do is going to be acceptable to every single person who leans in the direction of your political party, then you're a throwaway. They can count on you no matter what. But don't let them count on you. Don't let anybody count on your vote. Make them earn it. Not just in November or late October. Make them earn it for 4 years. Every day for 4 years. What's wrong with that?
It's too logical. It'll never fly.
I think, well, if all of us did that and said, hey, we're Americans, we're Americans first, and we'll see which of the 2 main candidates we choose, or the 3 if we can get a viable third party going, then everybody's got to deliver their A game. And who's the beneficiary of that? You and me. Always. And we have to look out for us.
That would be nice, yeah. I still think it's going to come down to a write-in campaign, and so that you don't have to, jump over all these hoops and have so much money and all that stuff. There's too many forces that are against the third-party idea.
Yeah, but how do you get the word out if you're not allowed to come and debate with the 2 main parties?
Stump?
Well, you'd have to stump. You'd have to do the whole circuit. You'd have to be on every news show that there is. Anyway, it's food for thought. And hold back. Do not wear your heart on your sleeve. You're a good poker player, right? Right? You're going to get chewed up, and you will lose if people can read you. And you will lose if people can read you in the political spectrum as well. So hold back. Make everybody work. That's what we sent them there for. That's what we're all paying them for. Because we're paying all of them, not just our political party representatives. We're paying all of them. And so, hey, we have a lot of power. And as soon as we all start to understand that and how to work it, I think we're all going to be a lot better off. Our government's going to be better off. And our station in the world is going to be a lot more pleasing to our neighbors, our allies, and those who aren't so fond of us will maybe have a different opinion of us coming up. Anyway, we're closing in on time.
Wow. Yeah, let's see. We had no idea what we were talking about, but once again.
Yeah. How is it we wind up talking about that when we started out talking about the South?
I don't know.
Oh, well. It is breakfast conversation after all.
Basically, that's it. It's just sort of what you talk about over breakfast or lunch or whatever, and that's pretty much what we're doing here.
Flip from thing to thing to thing. No rules. Anyway, we hope you have a great day. We hope that your blessings are so many that you can't even name them all. And with that, I'll say goodbye. We'll talk tomorrow.